Good morning, Los Banos, and welcome to the Los Banos Today morning show. The morning show is brought to you by the Central Valley Geeks. The Central Valley Geeks, for all your computer and iPhone repair needs. Give the Geeks a call today at 209-826-3410. And hey, guess what? We've got a special show for you all today. Joining me here today, back on the show, is Stephanie Gonzalez from the Merced County Tobacco Control. Good morning, Stephanie.
Thank you for having us.
And a new guest is Christopher Jensen. He's with the Merced County Behavioral Health. You are a prevention specialist.
Correct.
Okay. And there's a lot going on with CBD, vaping, vape pens. You were showing me some stuff before the show. Everybody's familiar. I mean, we see people walking down the streets, huge clouds of smoke coming out of cars. And I mean, you know, this is worse than cigarettes ever was. This is taking it to a whole new level. Yeah. We're beginning to see legislation begin to get enacted. And we invited you guys here today to educate those of us that are not really understanding all of this, what's happening, I mean, right beneath our eyes with our kids, you know. And I don't know, I remember when you were here last time, you kind of educated us on some of the different flavorings of the vaping devices, et cetera. Yeah. And we're hoping that you would also give us some education on some statistics maybe that have happened since then, illnesses, et cetera. And I guess we'll start with Stephanie and just kind of.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for inviting us.
Well, thank you very much for joining us.
We're always very excited to be able to share the information with the community. Yeah. That's our importance, to make sure that we share the message with the youth, let them know about what's really going on with these products, just because a lot of times we see that the youth tend to go to these products because they think they're either a safer alternative, they're not addicting, a lot of times they don't know that they contain nicotine, or, you know, for the vapes, there's a lot going on with them with the different types of THC levels that we see compared to back in the 80s and 90s. Back in the day, right? Yeah, it's a completely different thing what we're seeing now.
Right.
Yeah, but we did bring some displays of the different types of products. These were actually generously borrowed to us from the Los Banos, school resource officer. So shout out to her. Yeah, but here I just wanted to demonstrate the different types of pens that we have. These are what you call vape pens, and these are specifically for THC. Obviously, we see a different variety of them. Most of these are refillable, if not all of them.
So let's stop right there.
Yes.
So you said these are for THC use. Now, is it my understanding that different vape pens can be used for different substances?
Yeah, that's right. So some e-cigarettes, what are traditionally referred to as e-cigarettes, are more of a pre-packaged cartridge.
Yeah.
So they'll have chemicals that are already produced and manufactured, and they're sold with the device. So some of the main products that are out and really marketed as a cigarette replacement.
Right.
What Stephanie was alluding to was pens or devices similar to this that have a battery, and then they'll have a cartridge that is fillable. So you can loosen it up, fill it with various chemicals, and these are the types of pens that we're seeing mainly used for CBD oil smoking or THC oil smoking.
Which we're going to get into in a moment. Now back to Stephanie. I just wanted to make that clear that these devices are being used for various chemicals.
Yes.
Even some maybe that we're not familiar with.
True.
Yeah. So just to add a little bit more to that. So a lot of times it is either the marijuana, the cannabis product, but we also see that they have the tobacco product, which the nicotine is derived from the tobacco.
And to kind of stress that point, this is a delivery mechanism that is a tool for delivery of getting it to the user in such an expedited fashion that the impact is greater. And then, like Chris said, the potency is nothing like we've ever seen before.
No, we see extremely higher doses. For a matter of fact, in the public health field, what we refer to these products as electronic nicotine delivery systems. That's a fancy name for, vapes, e-cigarettes, the hookah pens, the mods. There's just different sizes and shapes. But at the end of the day, they're all electronic delivery devices, right? They either deliver the nicotine or the cannabis. They're operated by a battery, like Chris just said, right? It has the cartridge where the liquid goes in there, whether it be the nicotine or the THC or CBD oil. But it also has an atomizer for the most part. These vape pens, the atomizer, it was what transmits what changes the oil, the liquid, into a mist, which a lot of time, which the mist actually is an aerosol. A lot of times we think that, or we hear from the youth in the community thinking that it's a water vapor,
right?
But it's much more than that. It's an aerosol. So we think of an aerosol, it's a gas, right? It
that's
has
a misnomer.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So this aerosol does contain different chemicals that obviously when it's being inhaled, it's coating the lungs. And as we know, the only thing that should be going into our lungs is oxygen. Any other chemicals is harmful and could lead to different diseases. Some of those,
which I think we're beginning to see now. Do you guys
Exactly.
have any information on that?
Yeah, so I was actually reading about this information, and I found that on CDC there was actually 380 reported cases. I know that originally they had identified 450, but they were able to, eliminate some of those cases because they noticed that out of those cases, 380 of those were focused specifically on, the vaping related to it. And I was doing some reading. Obviously, there's still not enough research out there. There's more information coming out every day. We're hearing it. Unfortunately, there's been 6 deaths related to it.
Oh, my goodness.
But what's happening is that they're using these products, and it could be, for the most part, it's the THC products, right? But some of them have been also using the nicotine. So it's not to say that it's one of them is the leading cause of it.
So let me just, what are they dying? What is the death from? Is it what's going in the lungs? Is it the chemical that's killing them?
So the thing is, when they are using these products, there's different chemicals in there. We have heavy metals, like lead and nickel, and when they're breathing these chemicals, it's actually going into the lung tissue. Ooh. I believe that I was reading about it, and they were also finding that a lot of the products contained vitamin E acetate. As we know, vitamin E, it's healthy to consume, to ingest, but it's not healthy to inhale. So it's an oil base, and we're inhaling an oil that goes into our lungs, and it's making it really difficult for the person to breathe. It's causing the wheezing, it's causing the lung failure. So a lot of individuals that have been using these products, these vaping products, they've fallen into a coma, making it really extreme. Pretty much,
I just heard something the other day about a kid that had just woken up out of a coma, and it was all around vaping.
Yeah. So they can't breathe. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
There's one young man that was only 18 years old that was actually placed in the hospital, and he described the pain as if about a 20 to 30 pound weight was laying on his lungs. That's how difficult it
and he's 18.
He was 18 years old, and he said he was breathing at the level of someone that was more like 80. So that lung capacity is extremely diminished.
Oh my gosh.
Stephanie mentioned the Center of Disease Control is doing a lot of research. A lot of this kind of emergency status that we're seeing with vaping right now is relatively new. Things that we've historically looked at, illnesses from tobacco, it took decades to see long-term effects from tobacco and for research to catch up to what was going on. The CDC, the Department of Public Health nationally, there's a lot of organizations that are doing the best they can to try to correlate all of this information together. Like Stephanie has said, weed out some that may not be have the common factors in what's being used, but so far they haven't been able to tie it to a specific product, a specific device, or a specific chemical. So the best kind of information that they've put out is do not vape until we know more. No matter what you're vaping, like Stephanie had mentioned, a good proportion, over a third of the cases did involve vaping THC, but about 17% of the cases, if not more so far, have been linked to just devices that were used to inhale nicotine. So we don't even know if it's CBD, if it's THC, if it's nicotine, if it's the combination. They're just not sure yet. All they know is the common denominator is vaping.
Well, let me just interject something really quick, because I dealt with cigarettes my whole. Hi, I'm Gabe, the owner of the Central Valley Geeks. Did you know we offer iPhone screen repair? We can repair most iPhone screens within 15 minutes. stop on by or give us a call, 209-826-3410. We are located at 924 6th Street, downtown Los Banos. Thank you. Have a great day. Life started when I was young. We used to run out and take our parents' cigarettes and smoke them as friends, you know, and we thought that was so cool, you know. And back then in the 70s and 80s, we grew up, our parents smoked in the house. Everybody smoked and drank coffee and alcohol. And we grew up with this, watching it on TV, and we were bombarded with advertisements, etc. And it just felt a normal part of our culture. And I mean, there was a point when even the schools allowed us to smoke. We had a smoking area, and we felt good. We felt like we've arrived. We're okay. We're, you know, we didn't realize we were killing ourselves. And like you just said, I was poisoning my lungs, and I didn't realize the impact I was having on my body. Sports went away. All these things just went out of my life. And as I got older, I began to realize I need to quit. Obviously, I started looking for solutions. One of the things I turned to was the e-cigarette to try to get off of these, get off of cigarettes. And one thing I noticed about that, and the reason why I stopped using it, was because I began to have breathing problems from the vape. It was messing with my throat and my lungs. And so we're not even talking about that level, what they're doing it at. You know, I was trying to use it as a tool to get off of something else. It just was worse. Yeah.
And right now, the vapes, the e-cigarettes, they're not recognized as an effective tobacco cessation product, right? Something to help you quit. I know there are people using it, but the CDC has not identified it as this is going to be an effective measure.
And that's interesting because they sell them in stores, you know, the various models and types and brands. That's where I got mine from, a pharmacy. And they had it behind the counter, and it made me feel like this is a safe device. To get me, you know, and they had it with the patches and all that kind of stuff.
The way that they're advertising it, they're making it seem like it's an effective tool. It's safe. But what we do know is that in these products, there are chemicals known in the Prop 65 known to cause cancer. We see benzene in there, which is used in obviously gasoline. So there are chemicals in there that are harmful.
And the metals and all the other stuff that we're dealing with.
Exactly. And they might not have the same chemicals as your traditional tobacco product. They still contain nicotine. They still have other chemicals, other, you know, heavy metals. So they're still harmful to
now, let me ask you this: are the kids able to? I mean, where do they get these chemicals from? Where are the stores selling them? Is it legal for them to sell it?
So it is illegal for minors under 21. Actually, in 2016. That age, so it used to be 18, right? Before 2016, I apologize. People within the age of 18 were able to buy these products. As of 2016, it's now 21. So we do see the California Department of Public Health has conducted research. They do sting operations. So if you're familiar with those, that's when a minor goes into the store and tries to see if the retailer will sell them a product. What we're seeing is that a lot of times they are selling these products in the retail setting, in the, what do you call it, the brick and mortar store, right? They are also buying them online.
What are we seeing in schools? What's happening? I mean, you were just showing us this all came from a school.
Yes. So one of the things that we've been seeing is that a lot of schools are calling us, letting us know, hey, we have this issue. The students are vaping in the bathroom. They're vaping in the classrooms. The thing is, these products are so easy to hide. They're small. They're sleek. So they literally take a hit or, you know, they take a puff and they exhale into their backpack, into their sleeve. A lot of times it doesn't have that distinct smell like a traditional cigarette, right? It smells fruity, sweet. There's over 15,000 different flavors in the tobacco industry. So, I mean, any flavor that you think of, whether it be, you know, cookies and cream, vanilla, strawberry, they even target specific ethnic groups. Like that's
the allure.
Exactly.
The flavors.
The flavors is what's attracting the youth. That's why we're seeing so much so much going on with these products. A lot of them are infused with flavors.
And I remember last time you were here, you were talking about bubble gum and this and that.
Yeah.
And it's like,
one of the things that you had mentioned earlier that I think is really interesting and we don't talk about a lot is the advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When we were growing up and our parents and grandparents were growing up, tobacco ads typically use the venue of radio or television.
Right.
E-cigs, vape pens, vape cartridge companies, they're veering away from that. There's not as much of that we're seeing in the grand scheme of the public eye.
Right.
Where the youth are really being targeted is through social media.
Right.
So some of our parents and grandparents that aren't on those platforms don't necessarily see all the advertising. Yeah. It's not as public as the billboard of the Marlboro
exactly
walking into the sunset.
Exactly.
We're seeing a lot more of these products being promoted on Instagram, Snapchat, even Facebook to some extent, Twitter. And one of the dangerous things about that is there's not a whole lot of regulation, and so some of the cases of illness that we were talking about actually have been tied to companies that are falsifying who they are, and they're portraying themselves to be a bona fide, well-known company that may sell or distribute a THC, CBD, or nicotine product. But little does the buyer know they're actually a false company. Wow. With the same labeling being used and same advertisement technique. So packaging looks similar, the cartridge looks similar, they may have the same blueberry, strawberry, unicorn puke flavor. They come up with all these catchy hashtags to follow their product. And those are the mediums that youth are using. It's not the billboards, it's not the radio ads, it's not the television commercials anymore. It's a lot more underground than it used to be. Which youth tend to appreciate because when they're using a product, they don't want adults, especially parents, teachers, administrators.
They want that discretion.
They want the discreet.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that with apps like Snapchat and things like that, where it's just disappearing and there's no trace of it ever being said. Or if you don't actually walk in on a child that's actually maybe on a computer, because now they're on their phones.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's more difficult to see them when they're on that phone doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And going back to that, as far as access on school campus, if somebody brings 4 or 5 cartridges that are filled with, nicotine, THC, both, all they have to do is send one snap out. 100 kids on campus are now aware.
Instantly.
Available.
Instantly.
So the messaging, the communication forms that are used now, it's just a totally different landscape for this industry to get into the hands of young people.
Yeah.
The advertising that it's a stop smoking aid or an aid to reduce smoking traditional cigarettes, there's a good, I think, rationale to that. However, we're seeing more and more youth use it that have never even smoked before. And that's the real kind of public alarm, I think, here, is that the crisis isn't that we're really trying to stop people from reducing their traditional tobacco use. That's a good cause. But what we're really seeing as a kind of unintended consequence of that publicity and that charge is that young people think that this is not a big deal.
It's the creation of a whole new industry, an industry that's taking on something that is far greater than tobacco ever did. And you said it's being done at a pace that is so significant. I mean, I can't even wrap my mind around it. I see these arrests and we do our stories and we see this kind of stuff with some drugs, but we're seeing a bunch of this stuff. And I'm looking at it going, what is all that other stuff? And that's what they're doing. They're selling these cartridges and all this kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, so even the students themselves, they sell them within on campus. A lot of times they're sharing the devices, which that's a whole nother issue.
Whole nother deal,
They have these clubs where they all take a hit, they share it in the bathroom, and just imagine, they're all passing the same pen. That's like something are expected to happen already.
You're spreading disease, etc. And I mean, what's the message from the schools? How are they handling this?
Some from what we've heard from the schools, a lot of them were obviously going straight into suspension.
Hi, I'm Dave, the owner of the Central Valley Geeks. Did you know we offer iPhone screen repair? We can repair most iPhone screens within 15 minutes. Stop on by or give us a call, 209-826-3410. We are located at 924 6th Street, downtown Los Banos. Thank you. Have a great day.
Expulsion, but they've noticed that they're expelling so many students. So they're trying to look at other options and sending them to treatment or referring them out to treatment. So that way they could, try to wean off of these products. And
because we're not talking one or two kids.
Yeah.
We're talking, probably a third to a fourth of the school,
numerous
right?
Kids every week is what we're hearing. We've met with a few administrators just in the last week that have been reaching out for help and saying exactly what Stephanie said. I can't suspend this problem away.
Right.
It's not working. These kids need more help than that.
Right.
I know that you're having a psychologist come on later to talk about some of the therapies that might be offered. Through the Merced County Department of Behavioral Health, we have a program called RAFT, which stands for Recovery Assistance for Teens. And what we're doing is encouraging administrators to meet with parents, talk about what the infraction was, and really promote a referral over to the RAFT program. We do a full assessment with the parents involved, let them know what level is the kid at as far as risk of actually being dependent upon these substances. And if they don't qualify for being addicted, we still have an education program where we'll give them 8 weeks of actual class, group, and one-on-one education about what they're doing, what it's doing to their body. What's kind of the nature behind the use, what's missing in life that might be driving the need for this adrenaline rush or this quick hit of nicotine. We're really filling some void when we're looking at substance use, whether it's nicotine, THC, cocaine, methamphetamine. Besides
peer pressure.
Exactly.
You've got the whole mix. I know for us, it was the allure of seeing our parents smoke and then just wanting to try it. Why are they doing this? And why do they not want me to do it? And then that was it back then. And then the advertising kept it going. The Marlboro Man. I want to be cool, and that whole thing, the stigma. And then you get into school, and it's that pressure. Try this, try that. Oh, you're not cool, and this and that.
When we educate young people, much like Stephanie's programs do, we talk about the level of attention that good information gets in when we're adolescents, as opposed to negative information. When I'm walking down the hall and I hear that Stephanie received a scholarship for a full ride to Harvard University her senior year,
I'm jealous.
I'm jealous, but I'm not spreading that information like wildfire on campus. But the same student walks by Stephanie and hears the principal say, "You're suspended. We found marijuana in your locker today." Every single student by the end of the day knows that happened.
And you're cool now.
And what happens is what really happens is it creates this misconception that everybody's doing it because we're all talking about it.
That's right.
But just because we're talking about it doesn't mean we're doing it. So what happens is we have young people walking around campus saying, "Oh yeah, I've done it," when they never really have. They don't want to be one of the 10.
That's right. That's right.
So there is a social norm, almost like that rite of passage that you talked about.
That is correct.
Feeling like I've made it, I've arrived.
Yeah.
And this is the new venue for that.
Yeah. I'm cool. Exactly. So we're seeing legislation now, like we were talking about earlier. I just saw something about Trump might be signing some stuff into legislation. What can you tell us anything about that?
So from the information that's been available online, it seems like the Trump administration is working within the next couple of weeks. They're organizing something, and hopefully for it to take effect in the next couple of months. From what it looks like, it would mean banning the sale of flavored e-cigarettes within the United States. This means obviously it's going to take effect within the vape shops, the tobacco shops, wherever these flavored e-cigarette products are being sold.
So having said that, I know a few years back we began to see a lot of, when the tobacco industry was getting hit with the increase in taxes, et cetera, we heard about a lot of them, possibly leaving and going into other industries. And I was told that a lot of them were going into these industries.
One of the biggest manufacturers, Juul, that maybe that device would be good to show. Some of these devices are so sleek
Okay.
in their design. I mean, this
It
almost
looks like a USB
a
device.
flash
That's the
drive,
purpose of
Flash
it.
drive,
you know, an external hard drive sometimes can
yeah.
look that sleek. So this particular brand, Juul, is actually one of the biggest e-cigarette producers and most successful, and they recently had some of the company endorsed or purchased by the tobacco
It was
industry.
Altria was the one that invested
Wow.
billions of dollars into this company.
Wow.
Yeah.
Altria.
Yeah, so it was Altria, the tobacco
Okay.
company. That's the one
Okay.
that was invested
Now let me
in this one. Yeah,
hold
go
that
ahead.
up to the camera. If you look at that, that looks exactly like you said, like a flash drive, like a little USB, because you know that's how they come out and you put them in the computer.
Yeah,
And that is interesting. And
yeah,
I'm sure I see a lot of different
yeah.
styles and
Pens, cartridges,
yes.
chargers. You know, the uneducated parent could see this and
Right.
say, "Oh, my son must have a new RC car,
Right.
Yeah.
Something.
phone that charges."
And that's
that."
my point.
Right.
Yeah.
It looks very normal.
It
discreet.
does.
You
It
know,
doesn't look like anything. It looks,
Yeah.
and the packaging is, you know, focused on the child.
Exactly.
The colorful, playful, and that's what I was saying earlier when I see these officers arresting these drug dealers and drug busts. Of course, you see the normal, you know, marijuana,
Right.
but now all of a sudden we're seeing all this
All these
bubble
different
gum
products.
packaging
Yeah.
type products, and you're going, okay, what is that?
What
and
is
why
that?
does this drug dealer with all these guns
Yeah.
have this stuff?
Yeah. Well, yesterday I was doing an educational presentation here in Los Banos, and I had shared this picture with them, and they told me that they took a picture of the products and they shared it with their family friends, and apparently one of the moms that that received the picture recognized some of the products that her child had,
Right.
not knowing that it was a vaping device.
Right.
So she was really shocked, thinking, "Wow, I thought this was just a pen or whatever." She didn't really know what it was until
It
she
is
was
definitely a
being
new
notified.
generation.
Yeah.
You know, and with the way our society is today, like you said, the delivery of the information is quick. The kids are getting impacted even faster at a whole new level.
Yeah.
With social media and with the ability of social media and like Snapchat, where it just
Right.
goes away.
Yeah.
There's no record of them
Right.
having ever said anything.
Right.
And now that you're mentioning, we're back into the social media, what we've seen is that they have challenges on Snapchat, right?
Okay.
They see specifically with the Juul, it's even using the Juul has now has the verb, right? You're juuling.
Juuling.
And what we see is that on Snapchat, they take a hit of the Juul and they try to hold their breath to
As
see
long as they
as long
can.
as they can, which is really risky, obviously, because the longer that you're holding it in, the
Yeah.
deeper it is going into the
Right.
lungs.
The
And
more impact it's having
Right.
on our lungs.
And that's something relatively new to the nicotine industry. You know, if we consider traditional cigarettes, one of the things that we usually educate folks on is the difference between you traditionally smoke or ingest THC
Yeah.
or cannabis compared to a recreational cigarette or tobacco cigarette. It's a lot more social, you know, it's
Right.
just very lightly puffed on
Right.
compared to
Yeah.
smoking a joint where you're inhaling deeper. So we're going to start seeing some effects that traditionally have been seen specifically to chronic cannabis smokers now take effect with nicotine smokers
Right.
because of the way the smoother taste, you know, the better flavor, the better smell. I mean, it's really relying on, it's become a totally different smoking experience
Yeah.
than a traditional cigarette. So challenges such as that, or more and more people are willing to volunteer in those activities.
And we're going to see more of that,
Yeah, it's
especially with kids.
Right.
I mean, if kids are running around eating Tide Pods because of the colorfulness,
Right.
what are they going to do with this? And then they're going to take it to a whole new level.
Yeah.
We're going to see games and different things,
Yeah.
and then that's going to cause illnesses, et cetera, because the ingestion is at levels. Okay. So the growing child, the brain, everything's growing.
Right.
I mean, we're like you said, we're going to have some people on. They're going to kind of go deeper into that, but I am sure you guys are hearing about, possibly depression and this
Yeah.
kind of thing in schools.
I think that's the main reason why the age restriction went from 16, 18 to 21, because we just know so much more now than we ever did about brain development. And having a standard age for any type of adult-oriented activity, whether it be smoking, drinking alcohol, ingesting THC, I think it was wise for the state and the voters to pass that and say this is kind of the point where.
Hi, I'm Gabe, the owner of the Central Valley Geeks. Did you know we offer iPhone screen repair? We can repair most iPhone screens within 15 minutes. Stop on by or give us a call, 209-826-3410. We are located at 924 6th Street, downtown Los Banos. Thank you. Have a great day.
Are willing to accept some of those risks, and that young people as emerging adults have the more maturity and the more understanding of the risk that they're taking on, as opposed to hoping a 16-year-old has that same level of understanding of the risk they're taking while smoking these products.
Yeah, because I mean, as kids, I mean, we don't look at it in that manner.
Right.
We're not looking at it that way. I know I wasn't when I was in high school. And so, you know, you just want to fit in, you want to be a part of, you know, and it's already difficult because you don't know if you're with this group or that group. And then you're trying to fit into those groups. And then something like this comes along. And then it begins to impact you in its way. So it's so difficult for kids today and what they're going through right now. And as parents, that's why we wanted to bring Stephanie and Christopher on, and we're going to be bringing on someone else who's got a master's in psychology, and she's going to go deeper into the bullying, the suicide, the depression. We're going to be focusing deeply on these issues and covering more. Now, Stephanie, I know you guys have met with the city of Los Banos.
Yeah.
You guys are going out into the parks.
Yes.
And you're in the trenches. You guys are both in the trenches. You're working on the front lines of this growing industry and trying to make an impact. I mean, what are you guys seeing overall? I mean, are you making an impact? Do you see?
Yeah, so one of the things that our program does, we focus on prevention education. So we're out across Merced County, including Los Banos. We talk to different community groups. We talk with city officials, decision makers, obviously the youth too. And we talk to them about the impacts of these products, about let them know what's happening, how the tobacco industry, you know, is using these products, the advertising with these, the advertisement of these products, the different flavorings, and letting them know, you know what, you have the opportunity. You could use your voice to make a change in the community. Here specifically for Los Banos, we're working on smoke-free outdoors, including the parks. One of the activities I know I mentioned during my previous visit was the tobacco litter cleanup, right? How we picked up 1,300 cigarette butts in 40 minutes.
An incredible amount of cigarettes.
Yeah.
And I know, because we've got guys that smoke out here in the alley. And you know who you are. You're just throwing cigarette butts all over the alleys here. And, you know, we got kids walking around, and they're just exposed to this on a regular basis.
So not only is it creating an environmental, you know, hazard because these...
And it's a blight.
Yes. Right. Exactly, right? These cigarette butts, the filters, they still contain those chemicals, if it's on the grass, you know, it could go into the soil, eventually it could lead into the water. Yeah, but another thing that we're also seeing is when people are smoking and they're around children or people in general, the secondhand smoke exposure. Right.
And that is huge. We know for a fact that is causing damage.
Exactly. So there's this, through the secondhand smoke, the person is inhaling a lot of these chemicals.
They're smoking also.
Exactly. So that's why we're working with the city. We're working with different decision makers across the county, trying to find solutions. Possibly a smoke-free public outdoors, including the parks. That's definitely a good option. But we're also working with communities to try to reduce the sales of these products to minors. One of the activities that we did in the city here in Merced County, we did the sting operations. And out of the stores that we surveyed, we found that 10% of those retailers sold illegally to minors.
Whoa.
Yeah, so those are some of the things that we're doing.
So what are they what's being done? I mean, are they getting fines? I mean, what's happening to the retailers?
So right now, So through the sting operations that we did, it's just for educational purposes. We're just gathering data. If, let's say, the retailer is caught selling illegally to minors, they could get a fine. They run the risk of losing their license. If they do lose their license, I want to say they get a 2 or 3 chances to, they have to pay a fine. After a certain time, they actually have to, give up their license.
3 strikes, baby.
Yes, right? But then they have the opportunity to reapply for another license. So there's so many things that are happening, but we are making sure that we're in the community sharing that information, talking to the retailers, letting them know, providing them information about, hey, you know what, you should not be selling illegally to minors. Make sure you're asking for the identification. And if it says that they're under 21, do not sell to them.
So, Christopher, I mean, you're, and I was just reading this, you're a prevention specialist in substance use disorder prevention unit. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit and what you're...
Sure. So, we're out of the Behavioral Health and Recovery Services Department, and similar to some of the work that Stephanie's doing, we're doing the same level of policy, engagement with policymakers, community residents, high school students, middle school students, and we do a variety of different strategies, including community education, policy development. One of the things that I wanted to mention about policy efforts is one of the things that I think is overlooked sometimes is the placement of where we're allowing licenses. And what we tend to see is that, and this is the trend with alcohol, we're hoping it's not going to become the trend with marijuana dispensaries, but they tend to cluster in
let me guess,
neighborhoods.
Low income.
Typically.
Yes,
so when we're talking about policies and reducing exposure, and things like that, we really need to be doing an analysis of the amount of the burden that the community is assuming with the placement. So we need to spread the wealth just as much as we need to spread that burden. Some of the other programs we do are after-school mentoring programs. We actually have one operating here in Los Banos at Pacheco and Los Banos Middle School, where we train high school students to facilitate a mentoring relationship for 8th graders that are struggling either academically, socially. They might be a new transplant to the community and not have a lot of social connection. We're also in Dos Palos, there in Planada and Delhi at this point.
And how does a parent get to know about that? Or is the school counselors talking with them about that?
So Mrs. Long at Pacheco High would be the school counselor if there was a student or parent interested in getting their student involved as a mentor. At the middle school, Mr. David, who is the school counselor there, he's in charge of recruiting the 8th, 7th, and 8th grade students that are in need of those services. And the purpose is really to get kids to build their self-esteem, build their ability to refuse that peer pressure we're talking about, and knowing why. A lot of times I think, I grew up in as a child hearing just say no. Unfortunately.
Thank you, Nancy.
Unfortunately, the majority of the time we're initially introduced to substances, whether it's nicotine, tobacco, itself, marijuana, or alcohol. It's not from a stranger. It's from somebody that we know.
That's right.
So if I just say no, and that's the only skill or information I'm giving, that person's not going to say, thanks for playing the game, I'll see you later, and walk away. They're going to continue to pressure me because the main reason is these are recreational, social things. These are social experiences using these chemicals with others. And so we teach them to understand why you're saying no. You have to know why, because if you don't know why, you're going to fold every time you're out.
That's right.
So we work with them on refusal skills. We work with them on building a connection to school. A lot of these kids end up, going to continuation school. If they're not intervened with because they turn to substances like this, they end up getting kicked out and dropping out. And then, they're unfortunately not becoming the most productive members of our society and our community. So we want to catch them when they're young, build their social skills, build their refusal skills, build that self-esteem, give them a stronger connection to school, make them feel that education is the key and it's important. Simultaneously work with parents in the community, just like Stephanie's doing. Some other great organizations are out here as well, to get them to understand these products and kind of the bigger nature of the political landscape, how they can get involved with that. Some of the communities that suffer the most chronic disease from these chemicals aren't traditionally involved in our political process. And so teaching them, what's that system look like?
Yeah.
Where do you get your foot in the door? What power do you have? A lot of people feel like, well, what's my vote or what's my voice going to do about this issue?
Right.
And they don't understand that without that, people that we elect, they make the best decision they can.
On our behalf.
If we're not informing them of what our goals for our community are, they're going with what information they do have. So it's our responsibility, but we're working to educate community members on how to take advantage of that responsibility as well.
Huge impact, and I know dealing with my own kids, it is hard for us parents, especially at the pace that these things are moving at. It is so rapid, so well disguised, and now you've seen what some of these items look like, and I think what I'm going to do is take some pictures of these.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Gabe, the owner of the Central Valley Geeks. Did you know we offer iPhone screen repair? We can repair most iPhone screens within 15 minutes. Stop on by or give us a call, 209-826-3410. We are located at 924 6th Street, downtown Los Banos. Thank you. Have a great day. I could before you guys go, and then put these up for you guys to see. I think because it's very important that we understand what we're looking at and what these devices look like, so that we can identify these things laying around in our kids' rooms, or if they have them maybe as a jewelry item or something like that, that we can identify it. We can now understand the pressures that they're going through, and we can start to make decisions about how we're going to approach our kids and what we're going to say to them. What would you say, being one of the final things before we close, what would you say to parents about that approach? How does a parent go about dealing with this? I mean, we're dealing with levels of THC. You showed me before the show, we're talking 80% versus 6 to 7% when I was growing up. Huge percentage difference in the toxicity levels of these products. And what would you say to a parent would be their best choice or the right thing to say to their child? Because we're talking about, the old days, you have a talk with your kid. It's not like that anymore.
It's hard.
It is.
I would say that for THC specifically, there's research that's been done on kind of the best way to talk to young people. And one of the things that was really surprising was that children who have a mother that explicitly tells them, I do not approve of you using that product, are 4 times less likely than someone that doesn't have that same conversation with their mother. So mothers, the old Rapunzel song, Mother Knows Best. We did a marketing project in Livingston, actually, trying to acknowledge the power that mothers have in that relationship with their child. So have those explicit conversations with them. And I would say be honest. A lot of people that have children growing up now did participate in tobacco, maybe currently using e-cigarettes, and tell them about the rationale for your use. If you learned, some type of lesson, if it changed your behavior, why did you initially do it? Do some self-reflection because we lose face as parents, and mentors in the community if we try to cover up those, experiments that we took part in as a young person. So I would say be honest and have explicit conversations about your expectations. Know about the products.
Get educated.
Yes. Go on 420magazine.com. Learn all about
420magazine.com.
Any products that are any canvases that are promoting, mediums that are promoting these types of products. Register to those. Follow them on Facebook. Get the newest and greatest and hottest products out there, and learn about them so that you can be educated and kind of keep those. It's not that we don't trust our children, but realistically, within the current economy, a lot of us aren't with our children 24 hours a day. We're working out of town. We're working out of town. We're working 2 or 3 jobs. Maybe we're working different shifts that don't allow us to be with our children at all times. So take advantage of those resources that are out there targeting our youth to learn about those products, so that when you do have that connection with your young person, you don't seem like the lame parent that doesn't know what they're talking about.
Right.
Exactly.
You're really well informed, and you're kind of a pro as far as the
cool
information
mom.
on. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Such a
we
struggle.
shared, talked a little bit briefly before the show, in that we primarily work with alcohol, drug addicted individuals, and tobacco's the last thing they're able to give up.
Oh,
Yeah.
my
It's
goodness.
the most socially acceptable, even now with the transition to these electronic forms of
It is.
delivery. It's a lot cheaper than some of the other drugs that are out there.
Yeah.
It's more socially acceptable. You know,
Right.
nobody's gasping
Right.
because you pulled out an e-cigarette
Right.
compared to a shot of heroin. You know,
Right.
so there's a different view of these
Right.
products. So
Right.
it is very, very difficult to quit.
is.
So the best kind of information I think that we could share today is don't vape right now. We have no idea what's going on with these products. People are dying. A lot of more people are getting sick. And we're not sure what the cause is. We just know it's the method of vaping that's the
Yes.
common denominator. And have those open and honest conversations with your kids.
So the message today is just wait to vape.
There you go.
Don't do it. So I want to thank you both, Stephanie and
Thank
Chris,
you.
for coming on.
Yeah.
We appreciate you guys so much and all the work you're doing out there in the communities, especially for those of us that, like Chris said, our parents are working, we're driving over the hill here or there, working different shifts, just trying to keep the family together, to feed the family and pay all those bills. And, you know, we've got things like this going on right under our nose, and it's important for us to stay informed. And Stephanie and Chris are out there on the lines fighting for us and trying to educate the communities and, you know, the local governments.
Yeah.
And so we're so appreciative for all the work you guys are doing. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thanks for
And
having us
thank
on.
all of you out there for joining us here on the Banos Today Morning Show. We appreciate it. Remember, like and share this video. And again, we're going to be having another person come on who has a master's in psychology, and we're going to talk more about that later. And she's going to be sharing a lot more and going more in depth on how these products are affecting our kids and us. Some of us adults are doing it too. So thank you once again and have a great day. Bye-bye.